Okay, I'm working on my 2002 Mazda Tribute here again, and we got an issue with the rear hatch. Basically, I can't get the keyless entry to lock or unlock this rear hatch. Now, if you've ever had a door that you hit the lock, unlock, and it didn't do nothing, but it made a little noise, but it didn't move the lock. Well, you got an actuator in there, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But basically, that part will go bad or burn up or whatever, and you just cannot get your locks to work. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. I said you have to use the manual lock now to be able to work this, but it's going to show you what tools we're going to need. It's not very many. We just need a Phillips, a T25. I've got a 10mm inch and a permanent marker so we can mark some locations. And this here is the actuator that works this locking mechanism for the glass part and the whole trunk. So it works both of those for the lock, unlock. So this is a used one that I took off another one. You can't really find this part new. I looked. You'd probably have to go to the dealer for this. I didn't see any. Not saying that you can't, but I had looked and didn't see any new ones. So I just wound up getting a used one that was exactly like the one that's on there. And I believe that these are going to be similar across many years and also makes and models of vehicles. So if you get to a scrapyard, you could look around and just see if you can find something similar, because it's it's going to be like a Ford or Mazda actuator. So anyways, the first thing we're going to have to do to get in here is we're going to take our Phillips and we're going to get up here, and we've got 4 of these screws holding this back panel here on, and we need to get that off first. We're just going to go ahead and take those 4 screws out. Okay, we've got those 4 screws out. We're going to need to lower this momentarily, and we're going to pop the glass part, and we're going to need to lift that up and out of the way, and that's to allow that room for this to slide off, because it would hit on that windshield wiper housing. So now we can just pull down. We're going to have a couple of snap clips. We got one up here, we got one up here, and a couple back here. So we just pull down and we're able to get the whole piece. Alright, so we're going to set that out of the way. Okay, so now that we've got that off, we're going to look right up here, and we can see the actuator. Now we can't just remove it because we have some Torx, the T25s, on the opposite side. So what we have to do is we have to take this down to where we can get to it. Now, one of the things that I like to do is to note the position, because we're going to take these loose. So I will count, like say right here, we've got to pop this out. I'm going to count how many threads we got there. So we got to look up about 4 threads, and then we can just pop this piece off, and it should just be able to get behind this. It's just got a little clip here, and we should be able to pop that first one loose. You'll see that just pops loose like that, and then this piece will just pull out. Okay, and we just kind of swing that out of the way. Now, as far as this one goes, we're just going to take it loose right here. We just pull that back and that will pop down. Okay, then we're going to come back here and the same thing we did with that other one. We're going to count how many threads we got, and then we're going to pop that piece down because that's holding over here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, now I'm getting ready. I've popped that loose. I'm going to pull it down. You could also take a marker or something. So once you flip that back, this just pulls out, just like that. Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and I don't know if we'll need this to be loose. We'll take that loose. We've also got this connector that we just pry up, and that'll push back. It's clipped pretty good, so we have to get under that, push that up, and then push that back. Okay, I actually used a little bitty tiny flat screwdriver to pry that one off there because it's pretty stuck. Okay, so I've got the rods that I need loose. Okay, so at this point we've got, you'll notice we've got a couple of 10 millimeters on this side and this side. What I need to do, we don't have to take the smaller one loose. I mean, we don't have to take it completely off. We just need to get it loose on both of these because that just holds the handle and that just allows us enough wiggle room. These here we're going to take completely loose because that's what's holding it on to this part of the trunk. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen these two and take these two completely off. Okay, so like I said, we just backed that one off. We took that one completely off. Backed that one off, took that one completely off. Now we come back here, we've got one Phillips. Now you can't hardly see these marks, but I've also put some marks with my permanent marker just for the location, just to kind of, you know, make sure there's no question about getting the location of it off. I want everything to be back the way that it was. So I've just put some marks around the perimeter. So we're going to go ahead and take this one out, and it's going to drop down. It won't fall completely because of this one, and there's going to be, the handle is going to kind of hang up a little bit. It won't fall down completely though, but it's going to get it down here to where we can get it out. Like I said, with the handle loose, we can kind of wiggle it out of there. With that tightened, it's just too hard to wiggle out. So we'll go ahead and take this one out. Okay, so with that back Phillips screw out, this thing's going to drop down. You can actually get to your handles and kind of give those a push right there and start wiggling this thing out. Like I said, just back those 10 millimeters off almost all the way, and we'll be able to work and wiggle this thing down. Like I said, we're just going to give it a little push here, and it, like I said, there's no need in taking more than you have to. And see, it'll just pop right down there. Okay, now we can flip this thing around, and just to show you, I made a mark on that one with my permanent marker, just so I was able to line up the vehicle I took it off of. And so that's all I did right there. This is, you know, no good, but that's how I marked that one. And just to make sure that I get it back kind of in the location that it was in. So we got these two T25s right here, and we're just going to go ahead and take those out. Okay, so I'm just taking both these loose with my Torx bit. Okay, with the Torx screws out of the back, this has a up here, this black piece just has where you can just turn it and it comes out. You can see how it's like got that little oval shape and an indentation, and that just, when you put it on there, it'll only go on that way, and then when you turn it, it essentially locks it into place so it can't pop up and off of there. So like I said, these are exactly the same part. So I'm going to take the known good one we're going to take and just put this back into place. So we'll take and pop it down on here and then just swing it around, or from whichever direction, it doesn't matter. We can slide it on from this direction and go the other way, it doesn't matter, but just like that. And then I'm just going to line it back up and get my mark kind of lined up, because I know that was lined up with the other bracket, and get the screws in there. I said the screws probably would locate it close enough, but I like to put marks just to make sure that things are going back right. So I'm going to go ahead and just put those screws in now. Okay, so we got that fastened on there. I'm just going to go ahead and take this connector and connect it back right there. Okay, so we've got that hooked up, and the most important thing before we put this back together, we want to get our key fob in our hand, and we want to make sure, you'll need to double click it for the unlock. But you could see my old one, you couldn't hear it doing anything whatsoever. So that appears to be working the way that it's supposed to be. So now we know that we're good to go ahead and get it all put back together now. So we're just going to work on doing that. Okay, when putting this back, the best thing that I can tell you, when you slide, it will go back in pretty easily, but you have to get these handles slid up and over. You look from this side, and essentially you maneuver your handles up and over this right here first. Carefully get those up and over that. Now once you do that, it just pops right into place. You may have to fiddle with it a little bit. It's kind of, because I can't really show you one-handed, but trust me, it goes back in there. Just don't get rough with it. Just fiddle with it a little bit. So get those handles up in to this and over this right here first before you go to trying to push this thing back up and onto the studs. See, now we've got it back on the studs. We're just going to replace those 10 millimeters, make sure our marks are lined up and they look good where they're at. And we're going to go ahead and lock down the 10 millimeters for the handle as well. Okay, so the 10 millimeters are secured, and can't forget our Phillips that goes right back here, and we're going to go ahead and tighten that down as well. Okay, so we're going to reconnect this connector right here, and we're going to work on, be careful, don't get your hooks in a bind. We put some slight marks there, but we also counted them. I know there was like 6 threads that was protruding from this other side, so I want to look at that and make sure that I got that about where I want it there. And then the same, we'll go ahead and snap that down. The same thing here. We're going to move this back into position, and we know that we only had about 4 threads or so right there. We'll snap that down. Nothing real critical, but you want to get things as close as you can. And this piece had fell off, which it's got one of those oval pieces you can see with a lip, and all you do, we get it back on to this right here, and we're gonna just spin it to where we get it down here, and right, just slips into that. Well, I got it on the wrong side. It slips into that, and then that just snaps back onto there. So we got that where we need it. And we're going to also be sure to check this mechanism out, and before we go to putting our panel back on, and make sure everything's going to work here. Okay, so now we're just here testing it out, and we'll take and lock it. We'll check both of our handles, and then we'll hit the unlock twice, and we should be able to open both of them, and we can. Like I said, we'll test this several times before we put it back together. We want to make sure that everything's going to be working properly here, and then we'll go ahead and get that panel put back on. Okay, so we're just getting ready to slide this piece back on here. We're going to start by making sure this slides on to this. Make sure your glass is open and out of your way. So the first thing, we'll slide it over this, and then we'll pop it in. Okay, and all I've done is just kind of slid it on to the centerpiece, and then we can just work on popping in these. Sometimes you gotta get it lined up, but once you do, and then we just got the couple down here. Just give it a push up. You can see I've done this one-handed, not that difficult. And now we're gonna get these 4 screws back in here, so you just make sure that they are lining up the way they're supposed to. If we have to move it, then we'll kind of move it and wiggle it around, but they should just line and go right back into place there. Okay, and then we have our 4 screws back into place, so we're ready to lower this down, and that's all there is to that. And like I said, it's not a big deal. You could lock and unlock by using your key here, but it's nice when things work the way they're supposed to be, or the way they're intended to work. So now we can unlock, and we can lock it without any worries of forgetting or anything, and leaving it unlocked, or having any trouble getting into it when we need to. So I mean, that's all there is to that. Said as far as the actuators go, you'll want to try to find you a used one if you can. I know you can get them on eBay, or you could get one from a salvage yard or something, but they run, I think, about $50 or so. As far as a new one, I don't know. I didn't see any of those. You could get them from a dealership, but I'm sure they're really expensive. So probably getting one off of eBay would be the easiest way to go about it. I just took one off of another vehicle from a salvage yard. So I said, if you're having that trouble, as far as any of your actuators go, doors or anything, that's what you're going to have to do, replace that mechanism right there. So I hope this has been helpful, and if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and thank y'all for watching.